जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन यमुना तीरवनचारी यमुना तीरवनचारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन यमुना तीरवनचारी यमुना तीरवनचारी। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे। हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे। हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे। हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे। हरे राम राम हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे। हरे राम राम हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे। हरे राम राम हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे। हरे राम राम हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे। हरे राम राम हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे। हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा हरे हरे। हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे। हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। जय राधा रास बिहारी राधे। राधा श्याम सुंदर राधे। जय राधा माधव राधे। जय राधा कृष्ण चंद्र राधे। जय जगन्नाथ बलदेवा सुभद्रा देवी। जय जगन्नाथ बलदेवा सुभद्रा देवी। जय गोपाल देवा जय गोपाल देवा जय गोपाल देवा। जय निताय सची सुत निताय सची सुत निताय सची सुत निताय सची सुत। जय नरसिंह देव जय नरसिंह जय पांडुरंग विठ्ठल हरि हरि बोल, पांडुरंग विठ्ठल हरि हरि बोल। जय तुलसी महारानी, जय तुलसी महारानी, तुलसी महारानी, जय तुलसी महारानी। जय षड गोस्वामी जय गुरु परंपरा, षड गोस्वामी जय गुरु परंपरा। जय जय प्रभुपाद प्रभुपाद प्रभुपाद, जय जय प्रभुपाद, जय जय गुरुदेव श्रीपाद, गुरुदेव जय जय श्रीपाद। जय बोलो युग धर्म हरि नाम संकीर्तन की जय।
जय
पतित पावन शिल प्रभुपाद की जय।
जय
पतित पावन शिल गुरुदेव की जय।
जय
जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्रजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत श्री श्रीमद् डिवाइन ग्रेस भक्ति स्वरूप दामोदर स्वामी महाराज की जय।
जय
जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्रजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत श्री श्रीमद् डिवाइन ग्रेस अभय चरण रविंद्र भक्तिवेदांता स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय।
जय
जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्रजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत श्री श्रीमद् डिवाइन ग्रेस भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती ठाकुर श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय।
जय
अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। नामाचार्य श्री हरदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा, श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्री वासदि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की जय। नवदीप मायापुर धाम की जय। मथुरा वृंदावन धाम की जय। पुरुषोत्तम क्षेत्र जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय। द्वारका धाम की जय। अयोध्या धाम की जय। पंढरपुर धाम की जय। गंगा मई की जय। यमुना मई की जय। तुलसी देवी की जय। भक्ति देवी की जय। सामवेद भक्तवृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण चंद्र मंदिर की जय। गोपाल जी मंदिर की जय। गुरु महाराज समाधि मंदिर की जय। All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. Sai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. All glories, all glories. Guru Gaur. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी। Hare Krishna. Welcome all to this continued discussion on this great transcendental literature, Srimad Bhagavatam. So on behalf of Bhaktivedanta Institute, I welcome you all, and I thank Bhaktivedanta Institute for giving me this opportunity to serve all of you for today's class. And I pray and beg for mercy from all of you that I'm able to serve this class to the best of my abilities for your pleasure and satisfaction. So we are studying from chapter or Canto 7, and we are starting a new chapter today, that is chapter 4. The chapter is titled Hiranyakashipu Terrorizes the Universe. So we will be discussing and studying verse number 1 and 2 today. So text number 1 is on the screen. I'll recite now. Shri Naraduvacha Evam Brutah Shatadrittir Hiranyakashipu Rata Prada Tattapasa Prito Varamstasya Sudurlaban. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhakti Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Narad Muni continued, Lord Brahma was very much satisfied by Hiranyakashipu's austerity. which were difficult to perform. Therefore, when solicited for benedictions, he indeed granted them, although they were rarely to be achieved. We go to text number 2 now. Shri Brahmovacha tate me durlabha pumsam yan vrineshe varan mama tatapi vitarami anga varan yadyapi durlabhan. I will recite the word by word translation meaning, and I would request everyone to also recite along with me. Shri Brahmavacha, Lord Brahma said,
Sri
Tata,
Brahmavacha, Lord Brahma said,
Tata, O dear son,
Tata, O dear son,
ime all these,
may all these,
Durlabha, very rarely obtained,
Durlabha, very rarely obtained,
Pumsam, by men,
Pumsam, by men,
Yan, those which,
Yan, those which,
Vrineshe, you ask,
say you ask,
Varan, benediction,
Varan, benedictions,
Mama, from me,
Mama, from me,
Tatapi, still,
Tathapi, still,
Vitarami, I shall deliver,
Vitrami, I shall deliver,
Anga, ho Hiranyakashipu,
Anga, O Hiranyakashipu,
Varan, the benedictions,
Varan, the benedictions,
Yadyapi, although,
Yadyapi, although,
Durlabhan, not generally available.
Durlabhan, not generally available.
Lord Brahma said, O Hiranyakashipu, these benedictions for which you have asked are difficult to obtain for most men. Nonetheless, O my son, I shall grant you them, although they are generally not available. Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Material benedictions are not always exactly worthy of being called benedictions. If one possesses more and more, a benediction itself may become a curse. For just as achieving material opulence in this material world requires great strength and endeavor, maintaining it also requires great endeavor. Lord Brahma informed Hiranyakashipu that although he was ready to offer him whatever he asked, the result of the benediction would be very difficult for Hiranyakashipu to maintain. Nonetheless, since Brahma had promised, he wanted to grant all the benedictions asked. The word Durlabhan indicates that one should not take benedictions one cannot enjoy peacefully. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guruhu Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajadam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamsha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvevacha पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति स्वरूप दामोदर स्वामिनिति नामिनि। नमस्सद्भक्तमनिये मणिपुरोद्भवाय च शिलप्रभुपादलसतवाणी प्रचारिणे रतायते। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिनि। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। गुरुवे गौरचंद्राय राधिकाय तदालिये कृष्णाय कृष्ण भक्ताय तद्भक्ताय नमो नमः। मूकं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरिं यत्कृपातम् अहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणं परमानंद माधवम श्री चैतन्य ईश्वरम। Hare Krishna. So once again, a warm welcome to all of you in this wonderful session of Srimad Bhagavatam. Today, it's the 23rd October, Saturday. So we are starting a new chapter, chapter 4, which I already mentioned. And the chapter itself, the title is Hiranyakashipu Terrorizes the Universe. Wow, what a title. So this means that Hiranyakashipu is the original terrorist. We are hearing so many terrorists these days. You know, some time back, 20 years back, Osama bin Laden was the most dreaded terrorist, most wanted terrorist all over the planet. And you know, there have been so many terrorists that we know of. Dawood Ibrahim, one comes to the mind, who's terrorizing, you know, and then was responsible in the 1992 Mumbai communal violence. He orchestrated that beautifully from some remote location. And then, of course, now we are seeing the emergence of Taliban in Afghanistan. They say there's a greater plan to cover even some of the other subcontinent countries. So it's all basically through the act of terrorizing. Terrorizing means you basically, you know, make people do certain things in your way, and otherwise you eliminate them. I mean, it's basically threatening. So here it appears that Hiranyakashipu is the father of all terrorists, and that's why his own son Prahlad also, in one of the verses, he basically called him as a first-class demon, top-class demon. His address is a top-class demon, that means top-class terrorist. So it is widely acknowledged. So now what we do here is that we try to understand the transition of Hiranyakashipu from I would say a top-class yogi to a top-class terrorist. How it has gone through, because there are plenty of lessons we can learn from this kind of transition, because we all in our life journey encounter situations where we might be either victims of certain situations, and then we go by the flow. And this is happening because if we are not having the proper knowledge, or we are in the mode of ignorance. So the previous chapter gave us a good insight about the complete plan that Hiranyakashipu made soon after he lost his brother. See, when he lost his brother Hiranyaksha, and he was trying to pacify his sister-in-law Rishabhanu and also his mother Deti, that time he gave knowledge of matter and soul. But slowly, somewhere inside, deep inside, there was some build-up in his mind, that he wants to take revenge of his brother's killing. So he developed some kind of feelings, very negative feelings about Vishnu, because he knew that it was Vishnu who has killed. So he made actually mega plan to kill Vishnu without even knowing what is Vishnu's position in terms of the overall material and spiritual realm. So as part of the plan, he also studied, understood from Lord Brahma's potency, that Brahma himself has done tapasya, and because of which he could create the material universe, all the living beings, etc. And Brahma is completely in charge of the creation, secondary creation. So, and then Brahma's lifespan is extremely very high. So he thought this is the way to go, that why not I also do tapasya, and I will even surpass Brahma in his tapasya, and then I will get the favor from him. So he chose the valley beside Mandara mountain, and then he set about his plans. So now he went on doing this for almost 100 celestial years, which we calculated in one of the earlier sessions. I had sent a chat in the chat box. This corresponds to around 18,000 earthly years. And this tapasya was done very severely, because there's a mention here that it's such a severe tapasya that nobody can even think about. Like he stood on the toe of one of the legs, and with his hand going towards the sky, and in that position to manage for 18,000 years. Here we struggle to sit in a comfortable situation for even an hour. We want to change the position. Something or the other part of the body hurts. But Hiranyakashipu did not experience any of those symptoms, because he was completely focused on his ultimate purpose. What for he is doing this? And because of that, when you have a purpose, automatically you tend to bring in strong will and determination. So he was very determined, and as we understand from Bhagavad Gita, that this determination which was supposed to apply for Krishna consciousness, that is Vaivasayatika Buddhir Ekaha Kuru Nandana. So this determination is a single pointed focus. Actually, he applied in a wrong way for his own personal gain, when he wanted to get that kind of attention of Lord Brahma. And as a result, we see that there are several instances where the demons, they do a lot of such tapasya to acquire certain benedictions, and they try to then rule or control the material nature. Ravana is another demon that comes to the mind, who prayed to Lord Shiva, and he got the benediction from Lord Shiva also. So like that, there are several such cases. And in the process of this tapasya, Hiranyakashipu also mastered in the 8 yogic perfections, including anima, lagima, etc. So all that was done purely in the mode of ignorance. So from a yogi, gradually he moved towards this kind of, because his ultimate goal was to compete with Vishnu, was to even kill Vishnu. So that was his ultimate goal. So for that purpose, he wanted the boon, and the boon was also something which is very unusual, which he asked Lord Brahma. So what was the flaw? Now let us understand the flaws of Hiranyakashipu's penance. So first of all, Hiranyakashipu was situated in the mode of ignorance, because he thought that he has to do this to basically kill and compete with the creator himself. So he wanted to be known as, recognized as the Supreme Personality. He wanted to gain that kind of a position whereby everybody starts worshipping him, and nobody bothers to care for Vishnu. So his ambition was right. As yesterday His Holiness Govind Maharaj mentioned, ambition was right. Ambition was to attain immortality. So immortality is not a bad ambition. We all want to be immortal. But what was the flaw? What was his mistake? The flaw was that he basically wanted to, the process or the path or the intention, that was wrong. So the intention of this particular penance was only one focus, that is to become the most powerful person, and that is to kill uh, Lord Vishnu, and that is to also take Brahma's position. Because see, on one hand, he is taking the boon from Brahma, and then once he comes that, his ulterior motive was to even displace him. He had successfully, conquered the Swargaloka, and each and every demigods ran out of fear, and they all escaped. And imagine, he was so powerful that all these demigods, they had their respective portfolios. He managed to, take all their portfolios, and he was all managing himself. Whether it is Indra's position or whether there is Vayu's position, all these key positions, he drove them away, and then he started to run the affairs. So everybody was, extremely fearful of him. So that is the kind of power he wielded. And then eventually, all these demigods had to, take the shelter and then really pray to Vishnu that somehow you help us from the situation. And in the summary of this chapter, Srila Prabhupada says, where Vishnu says that, don't worry, very soon your problems will be resolved. So now what actually was the, the main issue is that he thought that, Brahma also is eternal. So by asking Brahma this favor to give me immortality, he thought he will become like Brahma. But he doesn't know that Brahma's lifespan also is determined, because he is part of this material universe. So Brahma's lifespan, as we understand, is 3,040,000,000,000 years, which is phenomenal. I mean, by earthly calculations, it's immortality. But at some stage, Brahma has to vacate, and then some other person will take over his position. So in one sense, it is a foolish kind of benediction that Hiranyakashipu was asking for, because at some stage, even if he gets that, he would not be able to enjoy the benediction forever. So this establishes that the flaws in Hiranyakashipu's penance, and this comes out of being situated purely in the mode of ignorance. Now we try to understand how did Hiranyakashipu actually obtain this demonic nature, or how was he born as a demon in the first place? This was a question asked by His Holiness Rajapati Maharaj, I think yesterday or day before yesterday. So was he a born demon, or did he acquire demonic qualities on the way? And what is the reason for that? So as I understand, there are two major classifications of this. One is an internal reason, and there are some external reasons also for this to happen. So the internal reason, of course, we know is that it's a part of Lord's greater plan. And Lord's greater plan, because the curse that Jai Vijay received from the Kumaras was to become demons, and then the Lord blessed them to become demons for 3 lifetimes. And the most important thing is, the Lord wanted them to become demons, and they were willing to become demons for the pleasure of transcendental pleasure of the Lord. So this was the internal reason why actually the demonic quality was already there. Now let us see the external reasons. So the external reasons are actually more relevant to us, because we are in the material world, and if we try to understand the external reasons, we can try to recognize such situations. We can try to avoid such situations also. So reason number 1, if we all remember in the one of the earlier chapters before the birth of Hiranyakashipu, Kashyapa Muni, when he was deeply meditating, and where he was very virtuous and highly spiritual, very powerful sage. So at that time, Diti approached him for a favor. She wanted to get too intimate and she wanted to have a bodily relation at that particular time. So Kashyap Muni was avoiding at that particular time because it was nearing sunset. Now it is an established fact that when a child is conceived after sunset, okay, or such acts are performed after sunset, then there is a good possibility that the child would have demonic qualities or demonic natures. So this is a very important point for all people who are entering Grahastha or already are in the Grahastha life, to know what is the right time to conceive a child. Because every 8 hours of cycle has got a particular influence on our thoughts, on our mind, and also the action. So Kashyap Muni was not at all interested. He even alerted, he even cautioned, he even warned Diti that this could be the outcome, so be careful. But the flame of passion was burning so high for her that she was not able to control herself, and finally Kashyap Muni had to give way to satisfy her passionate desires. So this was one of the main reasons, external reasons, that why Hiranyakashipu acquired demonic qualities. Now, what is the lesson that we learn? So the lesson is that we need to guard, as a Grahasthas, we need to guard from such acts of, in an untimely manner. It is very important. For everything there's a time and place. So such acts should not be performed in a when the mode of ignorance is highly prevalent. And second thing is, when a powerful demon takes birth and he demonstrates his demonic qualities and demonic nature in the entire universe, then it's a possibility that we can recognize that this act is something very unusual, and it is an act where he is trying to, the demonic act is typically an act where you try to lord over the material nature. So when we learn such things, it's a chance for us to or opportunity for us to correct, because we all, after all, we are born in this material world, so we all would have some of these qualities, if not all the qualities, because it all depends upon how we are born, to which family we are born, what qualities, all that. But still, because we are born in this material world, and because we are born in this age of Kali Yuga, so there could be a tinge, or there could be a predominance of such qualities in our lives also. So we need to guard against that. Now, these qualities are predominant, and it is now called as what is known as the modern material civilization. We call it as a modern material civilization, but if you see what is happening in this modern material civilization is nothing but entire lording over material nature. Material civilization or advanced modern civilization means to lord over the material nature. That means to exploit the material nature and then use it for your own sense gratification. So this is exactly the quality that Hiranyakashipu was demonstrating. He was controlling everything. So when we try to understand the material civilization, it is very much, we can draw some parallels there. And so Srila Prabhupada says that in the modern material civilization, we try to dominate the material resources to such an extent that we actually forget the ultimate means and purpose. Just to give an example, large scale for the printing of paper, to manufacture paper. Now, what is this paper used for? Let us, understand, because we are encountering this very practical situation. So we find that papers are primarily used for variety of things. The most prominent one is the newspaper. Srila Prabhupada observed it in the 70s in the US, and that culture has come now even to Bharatvarsha, that the newspapers are no more a 10-page or a 12-page newspaper. When I was a child, the newspaper used to be only 8 or 10 pages, but today it comes like a like a booklet. You have the main newspaper, then you have the supplementary sports, then you have the supplementary something on Bollywood, so it's like a complete package. And then people want to read it over and again, and the process, it doesn't really help them to purify their senses or consciousness, because these things are only agitating it further. Papers are also used for novels, and we know what sort of novels are liked by a majority section of the people. So those kind of novels are made for their taste. Papers are also used, in fact, in the newspaper, normally one section, one side of the newspaper is always crossword puzzle. And you see, typically in Mumbai, in the railway stations or inside the crowded train and all, people are busy solving the crossword, as if that is the, ultimate purpose of human life. So papers are used for that also. Papers are used for sex literatures, pornography materials, which is completely, destroying the young minds, intellect minds. So papers are, used for so many such things. And then because the trees are cut for this purpose, the trees cannot, there are no trees left to give you oxygen back. So there is an imbalance now in the climate. And then we try to address it by saying, oh, there is a global climatic change and there is a global warming. And then there's some committee and some nations are formed in the name of that. And then, they have to address that. And pollution increases, more, disease symptoms. So, one after another, this is called, the civilization, materialist civilization, without any proper thought. And this clearly because if they are in a mode of ignorance, they have no idea of what the scriptures state. So therefore, material civilization is, is misdirected. Similarly, I'll give you a crude example. When we see sometimes on the streets, both in several places we can see in India and abroad also. What happens to a drunkard man on the street? When a person is completely intoxicated and sozzled with, his alcohol, then he loses his control, he loses his balance. But he thinks that he is in control of situation, and he starts loudly blabbering out, and he starts abusing people, and he tries to even harm people. But this is all till that effect of intoxication remains. Sometimes, he's overpowered by a common man and they beat him up. And then after some time, once the intoxication goes away, he becomes normal and then he goes. So this is a typical, why I'm bringing this example is that because this drunkard man on the street, represents a miniature, part of the extreme part of the when the mind is completely going towards the demonic, that is other end of the mode of ignorance completely. I mean, Hiranyakashipu tries to dominate. I mean, it's in a larger scale, but for few minutes, even the drunkard man on the street, he would think that he's Hiranyakashipu, he can do anything. Even the truck drivers, I'm told, this inter-city truck drivers, they consume alcohol in the night because they feel that when they're driving, they get some josh, and that is required for them to drive. So at that time, they don't see who comes near them. They will just, hit them and go. So these are all the typical symptoms which are actually leading to more and more demonic nature, which ultimately the purpose is to dominate over the material world. Okay. Now Prabhupada talks in this verse, in the purport, that material benedictions are not always exactly worthy of being called benedictions. If one possesses more and more, a benediction itself may become a curse. For just as achieving a material opulence in this material world requires great strength and endeavor, maintaining it also requires great endeavor. So we understand from this that there are two types of broad classifications of benedictions. One is a material benedictions and another one is a spiritual benedictions. So material benedictions are typically we experience from our childhood. You know, when we pay obeisance to elders, what do they bless immediately? They say, may you study well, may you get the top rank. So these are all part of material benedictions. Then when we become a youth, you know, they say, may you make more money, may you get promotion in your organization. And then when you are entering Grasta life, the benediction or the blessings that is given is, may you be blessed with a lot of children, more sons, So this is the kind of material benedictions which we are encountering constantly. And this kind of material benediction, as Prabhupada says, it looks like a benediction, but actually it's a curse. Because when you get this benediction, and then let's say you're excelling in that, what you eventually do is that we use our senses, our mind, our intelligence, our ego, everything for our own sense gratification, nothing else. There's no other agenda. This kind of material benediction has only one agenda, that is how to please my own senses and how to prove that I am better than somebody else. And then in the process, I try to dominate over somebody else. So this material benediction does not last long. And sometimes we see that, when people chase for, they think that happiness comes from richness. And then they go and do various kind of, ceremonies. And eventually when they achieve richness, there is no guarantee of happiness. In fact, they see that now they are getting some other problems. It could be in the form of disease. It could be in the form of insecurity. It could be in so many different ways. It would be disturbed. Your mind is disturbed. So actually, a learned person feels that this is not a boon. This is actually a curse. Whereas on the other hand, spiritual benediction is always a real boon. That's a real benediction. Because in spiritual benediction, the benediction helps you to dovetail your desires to the desires of the Lord. In the spiritual benediction, your senses, your mind, intelligence, ego, everything is completely put into the service of the Lord for His transcendental pleasure. So that benediction, when you receive, then it is eternal, because you are serving the Lord all the time. So it doesn't matter in which body, in which yuga you are there, but because it's a spiritual benediction, you'll always be in that particular mood. Now, from the scriptures, we come to know that the recipients of spiritual benedictions, what is their destiny? The first example that comes to the mind is Dhruva Maharaj. So Dhruva, initially he had a material benediction. Actually, he went to the material benediction. He wanted a kingdom bigger and more powerful than his own father, because he was not able to sit on the lap of his father. But because the benediction, because he was asking the benediction from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Vishnu, in his mind he wanted a material gain. He had a material desire, but the person he approached for the benediction was Vishnu. And after great tapasya for several months, he eventually saw Vishnu. Now, when he saw Vishnu, he realized that whatever he asked for was just like a piece of glass when he actually saw the diamond in front of him. But because his prayer was so sincere, and because the Lord appeared in front of him, now the Lord, and he said that I don't need anything, but Lord cannot go empty-handed because the Lord has come. So the Lord understood what he was praying for and blessed him with his own loka, Dhruva Loka. Okay. So he got his benediction fulfilled. At the same time, because he prayed to the Supreme Personality, it was ensured that it is not a temporary boon, it is a permanent boon. So he resides in the eternal place and is all the time serving. Another example that comes to the mind is, in fact, a couple of examples that come to the mind is Bharat Maharaj. Bharat Maharaj was deeply meditating to the Lord, and then by the will of the providence, the second life was a deer, the third life was Jada Bharat, but after that he went back to Godhead. And similarly, Chitraketu, King Chitraketu, we studied few months back, and he also prayed at the advice of his son, at the same time Narad Muni. He saw Lord face to face, and then he was in the Pushpa Viman going to Vaikunta, and again by the will of providence, only one lifetime he became a Dhritarashur, but then after that he went back to Godhead. That is a permanent thing. So that way we see that the scriptures reveal that if at all you want to ask for some benediction, better to ask for the highest benediction, and that is what actually the purpose of human life is. So so Hiranyakashipu basically made a severe mistake by actually asking for a material benediction to the topmost person in the material universe. Had he asked for this benediction to Vishnu, maybe he would have got the benediction, and maybe his mind would have gone away from the demonic, because the love towards the Lord would have been established to get that benediction. So this is something that we can learn. So this brings us to the point now. How do devotees approach immortality? Because we said in the beginning that immortality is not a bad bargain to ask for. It's the topmost bargain. We are all here to actually become immortal. It's a change in paradigm from in the consciousness. So from Dhruv Maharaj's example and from other liberated souls example, we understand that we should be approaching only the Supreme Personality of Godhead for the benediction. And since the Supreme Personality of Godhead is not directly visible to us, so we have to approach the representative of spirit of the personality, Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the representative will engage us in the service of the Lord. So in this case, it is a spiritual master who is a direct representative of the Supreme Personality. And when we engage with full love and conviction in the service of the spiritual master, then he ensures that he takes us back to the place where we belong. What does the Shikshashtakam teach us? So devotees learn from the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Shikshashtakam teaches us, na danam, na janam, na sundarim, kavitam va jagatisha kame, mama janmani janmani ishware, bhavatat bhaktir haituki tvai. So that means we as devotees should not aspire to accumulate dhanam, wealth. Okay, we should not aspire for sundarim, beautiful woman, and we should not aspire for. We should only aspire for haituki tvai. That means janma janma, the life after life. We want to be connected to the Supreme Personality of Godhead in devotion, life after life, in costless devotion, devotional service. So that is what actually we want. We don't want anything else. So that mood when the devotee takes, so that is actually the benediction that we all pray for. And that's why we do this kind of intense service in a devotional mood. Further, we understand from Upadesh Amrit, the teachings of, nectar of instruction from Srila Rupa Goswami, our prime acharya of Goswamis, that he says what we should guard against and what we should do to achieve this. The important thing is, if you guard against some activities, that will ensure that you don't get those demonic qualities, which is so predominant in the material world where we are part of. So ati ahara prayaschascha prajalpa niyam agraha Jana Sangasya Lolyam cha Sadbir Bhakti Vinashyati. So these 6 activities, Ati Ahara, that means overeating and over accumulation. So this overeating is typically a quality of people who are, having a lot of, let's say, richness. Somebody who's rich, he wants to show off his richness through lavishness. So this is basically an opulent quality. But here, Rupa Goswami warns us. Basically, he's telling us, you be simple living and high thinking. So atihara and the over endeavoring, that is prayashchas. So over endeavoring. So here Hiranyakashipu was over endeavoring. Over endeavoring can be done only for devotional service. You don't have to do for anything mundane activities. If you do for mundane activities, then your bhakti is vinashyati. We can't do that. So over accumulation of wealth, you just have to have enough activity to keep your body and soul together, so that we are able to perform our devotional activities perfectly. Anything more than that is not desirable. Then he says, avoid the Janasanga. That means we avoid the association of demonic people, or like people who are not like-minded, because this would only lead us more towards hellish thoughts. Laulyam cha, greed. We should not be over greedy in our activities, in mundane activities, in material world, because these things again will destroy the bhakti. So in other words, we have to just lead a simple life, as and that simple life leading would actually take us to the level of Mahatma. We have to become Mahatmas. It is not difficult to become Mahatmas. In Bhagavad Gita, it said that human life is meant for simple living and high thinking. And so Mahatmanas tu mam partha daivim prakritim ashrita bhajanti ananya manaso. What is that? Jnatva bhutadim anyayam. So that means the realized souls, these are the Mahatmas. That means they engage all their senses only in devotional service. Yesterday, one point that His Holiness Govind Maharaj made went deep into my head. That is, we can create our own measurement yardstick for devotion by seeing what activities we do after we finish our prescribed round of chanting. Are we still having the taste? Because a person who is really attracted towards the Lord, he will be automatically attracted towards japa, towards reciting His name again and again. If after doing japa, again we come back to mundane activity, then we have to work on our devotional service. On the other hand, if we are so much attached to Krishna, then we would never miss out calling His name every now and then. We will continuously be thinking of Him, and then chanting will never stop. And then finally, our Bhagavatam says what sort of occupational activities we should engage in. So, dharmasya hi apavargasya. That means our occupational duty should be only single pointed. That is to gain the ultimate liberation. Nothing in between. We cannot, settle for anything in between. It has to be ultimate, apavargasya. That is the topmost. And that liberation is should not be for any material gain. It should be completely aituki, costless. It should be purely in love of the authorities. And finally, I want to just mention one very important. I'll just take 3-4 minutes more, Maharaj, with your permission, because this is a very auspicious month. It's called the Karthik Month, which started about 3 days back, and is also called as the Urja Mas, because Urja is also Srimati Radharani, who's the energy of the Lord. Krishna is Shaktiman, Radharani is Shakti. So we are talking of what activities devotees should do to ensure that we don't fall into the Hiranyakashipu consciousness. So to keep us completely guarded and protected, such months like Purushottam month, which is the month for Purushottam, that is Lord Krishna. Similarly, this Karthik Mas or Urja Mas is basically for devotees to perform some austerity. So if at all you want to do tapasya, this month is extremely good. We can chant more rounds. We can cut down some material activities. We can be fully focused in some service to the Lord. You know, some of us are even doing we are forced to do our work, job work and all. So we try to, if possible, minimize that and devote more time in spiritual activities, because that would give us some benediction. Now we are talking of the word benediction. So in this month, when a devotee practices his spiritual activities with full sincerity, then he is likely to be getting the spiritual benediction. So I would like to see in this particular month, normally a devotee, to increase his bhakti, should recite the Gopi Geet, which is sung by the gopis in remembrance and separation of Lord Krishna. And in that one particular verse, that is verse number 18, I like very much, because of course all the verses are in the glories of the Lord, but the 18th verse is also can be applied for our spiritual master. So when we sing the 18th verse, we can think our spiritual master, and in that mood of separation we can sing. I will sing that for the benefit of all of us. Brajavano kasam vyaktirangate Vrajinahantryalam Vishwamangalam Tyajamanakchanas Tvatspiratmanam Swajanardrujam Yannishudanam. O beloved Master, your all auspicious appearance vanquishes the distress of those living in Vraja forest. Our minds long for your association. Please give us just a bit of that medicine which counteracts the disease in your devotees' hearts. Such a wonderful composition. All these 19 verses which we find in the 10th canto of Bhagavatam, 31st chapter, from 1 to 19. So this 18th verse, when I read, immediately, it lifts my spirit, because I'm able to think this in relation to the spiritual master. So this is the benediction that I would personally like to ask on this occasion, because we are talking of different types of benediction, and I beg and pray to all of you to please pray for me, so that I'm able to make even greater progress in my devotional life and in the service mode to all of you and to Srila Shripad. So I would like to end here on this note. If anybody has any questions, comments, suggestions, please come forward. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji, for that wonderful, elaborate class. I will request audience to please raise your hand if you have a question. Hare Krishna. Krishna, Krishna, Okay, I'll start with me. Maybe this will inspire others to also. So,
hopefully.
Oh, our Balram Prabhuji has raised his hand. Okay, I'll unmute him. Go ahead, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandot Pranam.
Hare Krishna. Dandot Pranam, Balram Prabhu.
Yeah,
Many belated greetings to you. I think yesterday was your birthday. May Lord,
yes.
May Lord and Srila Shripad bless you with more bhakti.
Thank you, Prabhuji. I need blessings from everyone. Thank you. So the question in today's class, you explained, because I didn't attend the full class. I was in the other class. I joined around 8 o'clock. So here you explained the benediction given by, let's say, the superiors who are here in this family. So those benedictions are actually curses, yeah. But what I feel, it is not the curse actually. These are benedictions, but depending on our status or state, and depending on our mood, how can we take it in the proper direction? That matters. Yeah, so the benedictions are fine, because what else they can give us as benediction? Spiritually, they cannot. I mean, no one can give any benediction except the spiritual master. But I mean, they can enlighten us with these opulences, whatever someone has. But it depends on us. How do we use this opulences, whatever we get as the benediction? So from that point of view, it's correct that they give benediction about this material opulences. There is no nothing wrong in that. So
yeah, so Prabhupada mentions in this purport, that if one possesses more and more, a benediction itself may become a curse. For just as achieving material opulence in this material world requires great strength and endeavor. So, yeah, in one sense, you're right that the person who is receiving the benediction, if he is spiritually situated, he can utilize even the material benedictions. He can dovetail the material benedictions for the ultimate purpose. So basically, the whole idea of benediction is, I mean, the better benediction would always be a spiritual benediction. Like, that's why we keep the association of all the Vaishnavas and devotees. Why? Because they pray for you that may you be engaged in better service of a spiritual master. So that prayer is actually a benediction. Okay. Now we are only talking of situations when somebody is not, spiritually situated, and he thinks that material possessions are the ultimate, and so sometimes this too much of material possessions, as we understand from scriptures from various acharyas, they can be actually detrimental in our spiritual advancement. Okay, so in that sense, it's not to be taken in a too much negative sense. So in that sense, it can be a hindrance in our spiritual progress.
So,
otherwise,
and this example that you gave through Maharaj, because I mean, he initially wanted this material benediction. That's why he went for the austerity.
Correct.
And later, I mean, at a later stage, when he got the benediction of becoming the king of his dynasty, it was, I mean, perfect. So there was no problem. That's why the situation we are in, the status or the level we are in, that actually matters. It's not the
as I explained, Prabhuji, as I explained, Dhruv Maharaj desire may be material, but he approached the Supreme Personal of Godhead. See, when you approach Supreme Personal of Godhead with intense penance and austerity, okay, or his representatives for that matter of fact, then they will ensure that your wishes are fulfilled, but you don't get a temporary boon, because they understand that this person is innocently asking it, but actually he's a devotee. So what we should actually bless him with. So they will give the. So in this case, you see, Dhruv Maharaj wanted material opulence, correct? He got material opulence, but where he didn't get in the material universe. He got in the spiritual realm, because he prayed to Vishnu directly. Now, in this case, in the case of Hiranyakashipu, he wanted supremacy in the material universe. Secondly, he wanted to challenge the Supreme Personality. These were the flaws which I explained in the beginning. Maybe you were in the other class at that time.
Yes. Initially, what Hiranyakashipu did, it would have been much better had he used this for the service of the of his people. But he wanted to, I mean, he took it in the negative way.
Right.
That's what it was the.
So this Dhruv Maharaj benediction, I hope I've clarified it now.
Dhruv Maharaj, I think he also got the material benediction because he went to fight with Yaksha, and there was a lot of other stories in between.
Who?
So Dhruv Maharaj.
No, the benediction was he wanted a higher.
But after he disappears from this material world, but before his disappearance, he also got he became the king, and he I mean took care of his kingdom.
So the ultimate destination, what he got was actually spiritual eternal, no? So that is the understanding in this. So the curse here refers to the typically material benedictions. Material benedictions are, because why would you want to see, just simple logic. I mean, we all want to go back to our eternal kingdom. Okay. So what would this material benediction be of any value to us? It will be of no value. You know, we are not acharyas that everything we are going to put in the service of the Lord. It's easy to say, but when we are completely having all the opulences, automatically our senses, our mind, intelligence will take us, will be, you know, drawn towards enjoying that, and then that's how actually we tend to miss the point. I mean, take the case of our Bharat Maharaj. Bharat Maharaj was in Bhava stage. From that stage, he fell down, no? Because just because he had a you know, soft corner, or he sympathized with that deer. So otherwise, he was ready to go back to Godhead. So he had to wait for 2 lifetimes, but still he went back. So it's very important to get this wisdom from such experiences and use it in our life.
Yes, Prabhuji. Also, I mean, when we see.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Let us take another question. I think there is no confusion. Dhruv Maharaj just didn't become the king, he became the devotee king. So let us take another question by our Nikhil raised his hand. I'll still like to give him a chance before. If you have a question, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dhanavad Pranam.
Hare Krishna, Dhanavad Pranam.
My question is like, how we will know whether we are over endeavoring or not? Or whenever we are over endeavoring, what are the checkpoints to, like, we don't, in the process, we will not know, like, we'll think, okay, for this task, we have to endeavor this much, and in the process, endeavors increases. So how to, how we will know we are over endeavoring, and what are the checkpoints we can check? Hare Krishna.
Very good question actually. It's a very good practical question. We all actually go through this stage because at every stage in material life, whether you are in a professional life or, you know, we are presented with situations where we are, you know, we feel that our sincerity is leading us to that situation, and therefore we are bound to take that. There are many examples also where people set some goals in life, like you know, at this particular age I want to go slow with the other aspects of. So it's basically how you learn the art of balancing initially between material and spiritual life, and then gradually you take the spiritual, everything that you do should be spiritually connected. So it's very important to get the connection. Okay, so whatever you are doing in life, you just see whether there is anything connected with to spirituality in that. If you find a means and purpose for that, go for it. Then it is not, you know, over-enduring is only in the material realm. If you are over-enduring for a purpose which is not in any way connected to spirituality, then that is over-enduring. Okay. Well, whereas if you are If you're always, thinking about spirituality, if you're connected to, devotional service, if you're connected to the service to the spiritual master, and for that, if the spiritual master has told you to do this, so superficially it might look like overentering, but you're doing to please him. Yeah. So anything that you do to please yourself, your senses, okay, that could be a checkpoint. And that I think we all can easily establish. I mean, am I doing this to please myself? Am I doing this to please devotees? Am I doing this to please my spiritual master? Am I doing this to please the Lord? So put this checksum, and if the answer is known to you, then it is very clear. Else you should always consult a senior, because sometimes it becomes difficult. So that's why a senior to whom we associate, either a counselor or your spiritual master, we should have that, and such questions should be put, and that I'm planning to do this. Is it over endeavoring for my sense gratification, or is it okay for spiritual life? Okay, so you should seek guidance of such people, and then they will be able to guide you, because devotional life is not possible on a solo. Material life education is possible on a solo, professional life can be possible, but spiritual life, no. You have to have guidance at every stage. Is it satisfactorily answering, Prabhu, for you? Neel Kamal Prabhu or Neel Madhav Prabhu? Hare Krishna.
Yeah, I'll just unmute him.
Oh, he's muted. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Neel Madhav Prabhu, was that helpful?
Is it okay, Prabhuji? Is it giving you some insights, or is it? I can't hear. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Okay. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Please mute yourself. Now there is a question from Alagata VSCRF.
No.
Please ask the question.
It is,
Prabhuji,
actually Prabhupada mentioned. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Could you please repeat? Could you please start from beginning, because you muted yourself?
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Actually, the Prabhupada mentioned this purport is that benediction should be only it should be in a proper to be received properly. When the receiver is not proper, then benediction is also a flaw for everyone. That is, in Telugu there is a saying, apatra dana. Of course, maybe in Sanskrit also. Patra, we should have the patra, and then only get the benediction from anyone. But the thing is that when we have no qualification and get benediction, then that is flaw. Like in Bhagavad Gita also it is mentioned, whatever we should do is only for Krishna, Vishnu. Yagnardhat karmana anyatra lokoyam karma bandhana. Otherwise, if you don't pray for Krishna or Vishnu, and it is karma bandhana. Yes. Simple thing. So, but here Hiranyakashipu missing by the providence of God itself. He acting as a Rakshasa, and he missing that as Maya Apahorta Gnana. He has everything. He knows everything, but because Lord wants him to act like that, he has been taken away by the misintelligence.
Yeah, that's what I explained. That's why I said as the internal purpose and external purpose of his demonic nature. Yes. So what you are saying is the internal
but Balram
purpose.
Prabhu asked to know something extra, something materially. That is separate thing. That's why I want to clarify. Sorry, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Okay, Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much for a clarification.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Now, Maharaji has raised his hand. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna.
Maharaj.
You want to say
Dandavata
something?
Pranam.
You want to ask something, Srikant Prabhu?
No, Maharaj.
Because here the what Srila Prabhupada writes is a perfected knowledge. We must appreciate from the absolute point of view. Material benedictions are not always exactly worthy of being called benedictions. Very profound statement, correct?
Yeah.
So it has to be corroborated, and Srimad Bhagavatam, this is especially. Think of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, what teaching he's telling us. You quoted that sloka, na dhanam na janam na sundarim, kavitam va jagadisha kamaye, mama janmani janmanishware bhavatad bhaktir ahetuki tai. Only benediction asked by devotees or sadhaka, or those who are serious for spiritual perfection, is ahetuki bhakti, correct?
Yeah.
So material benedictions are not always exactly worthy of being called benedictions. It's a great statement. If Krishna bestows somebody, by but one doesn't have to beg for material benedictions, because they have tremendous repercussions or consequences. I want to suggest to Balram Prabhu, 6th canto, 11th chapter, text number 22. If you can read, Unsa kilai kant dhyam sakanam, ya sampadau divi bhumau rasayam, narati yadvesha udvega adhir madha kalir vyasanam samprayase. It doesn't matter who the person is, who is receiving, because benedictions, to beg for material benediction, it's a very dangerous thing. This is what Vritrasur says, very, very whatever Srila Prabhupada writes in purport is a perfected transcendental knowledge for the benefit of us. So how otherwise we will reconcile when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying na dhanam na janam na sundarim kavitam va jagadisha kama, it includes everything, correct?
Yeah.
Can you read for the benefit 6, 11, 22? Very profound. That's the beginning of the Chatushloki of 6 slokas. Just as Krishna says 6 slokas, in the same way, this is the beginning of Chatushloki. 4 slokas, 2 slokas preceding the actual 4 slokas. So this is the first one, very profound. It's a background of attaining on the path of love. Could you open? Do you have the access to?
Yes, Srikant Prabhu, 6, 11, 22, can you open from there?
Okay. I have to open the laptop.
Okay, I'll.
Yes, I'm here almost. 6, 11.
11, 22.
Krishna Chaitanya.
So 22 to 26, all 6 slokas, they should be memorized by, I think, every sadhaka who really aspires to become a pure devotee. It has the essence of the whole Bhagavat Dharma. These are the 2 realizations. Then the prayers are the last 4 slokas. So these 22 and 23 both are profound realization of Vritrasur for our benefit. And he's speaking to Indra, can you believe, who is always looking for material benedictions. So he's teaching him. You have
Sam Kilekanta Diyam Swakanam Yaha Sampado Dvibhumo Rasayam Narati Yadvesha Udvega Adit Madha Kalit Vyasanam Samprayashaha. Persons who fully surrender at the lotus feet of Supreme Personality of Godhead and always think of his lotus feet are accepted and recognized by the Lord as his own personal assistants or servants. The Lord never bestows upon such servants the brilliant opulences of upper, lower, and middle planetary systems, of this material world. When one possesses material opulence in any of these three divisions of the universe, his possessions naturally increase his enmity, anxiety, mental agitation, pride, and belligerence. Thus, one goes through much endeavor to increase and maintain his possessions, and he suffers great unhappiness when he loses them. Wow, wonderful.
Purport is also very powerful. It's all right, but time is limited. Everybody
Yeah.
can study.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Maharaj. This is a very useful purpose for us.
I have one small comment on the 18th shloka of Gopi Gita you mentioned.
Yeah.
The context, here we have to see that these are the gopis' realizations.
Yes.
These are not our realizations.
Correct. Correct.
So we are meant to increase our appreciation for their unlimited love for Krishna and how they are begging as if, they're apparent and real, the difference. So apparently they only want to make Krishna happy. And this is their experience, that in their presence, in their conversations, dealing, they have seen Krishna happy. So why Krishna is depriving himself to become more happy in their association? So that's why they're hankering to meet Krishna, to be able to see, and only to make him more happy and more happy. And that's why in this glorification here, they are saying, your credentials are very high, Krishna, you have come to bestow benediction to the whole world. Ultimate benediction, Vishwa Mangalam, correct?
Yeah.
You have appeared to cause the ultimate good to the whole Vishwa universe, and of course, especially Brajavasis,
Yeah.
and you don't tolerate any misery of Brajavasis. Every time some calamity came, you removed Brajavasis, So if that is your credential, and those who would see that you are benedicting ultimately to the whole world, and you do take away all the calamities of the Brajavasis, those who are very fortunate, they will be able to see. But as far as we are concerned, we don't think we are that fortunate. We have given everything to you, and still we are feeling in your absence. So absence of Krishna not able, is really bothering them, that they are not able to do anything because he's playing hide and seek. So in his absence, what can they do to make him more happy? And that's why they supplement. They beg that please, without us, without our being able to do anything for you, it makes us miserable, and only you have the medicine. So you like to share for your pleasure everything, and we are thinking. So in that case, it should not be taken as that they are begging to fulfill their lusty desires or anything like that. They want to offer the best. They have given their heart to Krishna. So it should be not taken otherwise.
I like this verse very much, Maharaj, because I just, when I was reading this verse, I was thinking of spiritual master, and because all the remaining verses are, totally in Madhurya, and this one also is Madhurya, but then I thought I can apply this for our spiritual master of all the verses, and wherever there is Krishna, I replaced the spiritual master because it helps us as disciples.
Yeah, that's beautiful, and but they're apparently accusing Krishna that you have caused relief of misery or calamity of Brajavasis, but only we are suffering. So is it fair? Is it fair that everybody is being benedicted and benefited and relieved by you except us? And so what we have done wrong here, what you have demonstrated in our presence was something very wonderful. You showed express your happiness and delight and everything. And now suddenly what happened to you? Why are you turning 180 degrees? So they are trying to understand his nature. That's all. Out of deep love, that accusation is the product of deep love. You know, one can accuse apparently finding faults in Krishna. Hey, Krishna, your credentials are very high. Why are you acting funny? Who else can say that? So it's a very deep connotation what Gopija is saying, and we must appreciate their level of love. You know, it's amazing. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prabhuji. And thank you, Maharajji. In the chat box, I have shared a link for today's reading, which will start at 1 p.m. We are going to start with a new book today, Man and Nature. So please, you can copy that somewhere. And I have already shared on the Bhagavatam BI group. Thank you. So, Prabhuji, I guess we can wind up now.
Okay.
It's going to be 9. Yeah.
Okay, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
It was a very wonderful class, very wonderful discussion, answers by your grace. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, all of you, for your patient listening and giving this servant a chance to serve all of you. Pray for me that I serve better next time. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Patita Pavana Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Patita Pavana Srila Gurudev ki jai.
Jai.
Gaur Premanande Hari Hari.
One last thought that came to my mind. You know, Neil Madhav Prabhu asked that question. The simple thing is, when we become authorized to do something, this concept disappears. There's no question of over-endeavoring, you know, because we have only 24 hours. How much over-endeavor you can do, you know, and that's the minimum. So it's when we are authorized to do something, we can go give all in. We have our limit. There's no question of over-endeavoring. You know, so as you said, the spiritual vision, it means authorized by the spiritual master. If we do something, you know, then we can allow ourselves to become fully consumed, and that's very blissful actually. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj.
To all of you. Vancha kalpataru vaishya kripa sindhu vacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah.
His Grace Shyam Chandra Prabhu ki jai.
Jai Jai.